Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the web width measurement application and how we can use the SCU5 controller to measure the web width and also use another PLC to collect that data, log that data, and also save it in a CSV file on a USB thumb drive. In order to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to first set up our SCU5 controller for width measurement mode. And then we also offer the RTI, which is the PLC, which has a special program that would actually talk to the SCU5 controller and then allow the user to connect a USB drive to the PLC so that the data can be logged automatically in the PLC. And the communication between the PLC and the SCU5 controller is being done through Ethernet IP protocol. And then the user also has the ability to set up lot numbers so that when they are tracking different product codes, they can enter that, and that information is saved in the USB file automatically. And the PLC also allows the user to start and stop the data collection based on a line signal so that the data is only collected when the web is running, and when it's not running, the data can be automatically stopped from data collection. And then finally, we can also connect that PLC to a stack light directly so that we can provide the alarms for warning, error, and then all good signals. So all of this can be done through the PLC, and that's what is shown here. This is the PLC that we would be using to do that. The first step in this process is to make sure that we have the SCU5 controller set up for web width measurement mode. And then the second step is to make sure that the Ethernet settings on the SCU5 controller and the PLC matches. And then the third step is basically setting up the parameters on the PLC so that you have everything for triggering the stack light as well as data logging. So those are the three main things that we are going to cover. So first, we'll start off with setting up the SCU5 controller for width measurement mode. As you can see here, we have the SCU5 controller now ready, and then we also have the two sensors up on the top right corner. And we're using two sensors, one for detecting each edge of the web. We'll go through this process so that we can set up the controller for width measurement mode. As you can see, if a web is presented, you can see that both edges of the web are seen by the two sensors. And then once that is there, we just need to set the controller for width measurement mode, and that can be done by following these steps. First, we're going to go into the tools icon right here, and then go on the bottom right, power user, and then go into the analog mode and make sure that the width is selected here. And when we select this as the width, now the home screen now shows the width as the output. The controller still doesn't know the distance between the two sensors. So in order for us to do that, we need to teach the controller for the width. So if I present the web here, it's going to give some random values there. So in order for us to teach that, the distance between the two sensors, we're going to go into the tools icon again, and then the top right icon is the operator icon. We're going to click on that, and we're going to click on the width mode, and then a few things that we're going to set so that we can teach the controller for the right measuring mode. First of all, the output type, we're going to change it to absolute, and then the nominal width, this is going to be the width of the product that you're going to present while you're teaching. So in this case, the width of the product is approximately about 5 inches. So I'm going to set in 5 inches right there, and you can use this icon to change that. And then the upper limit and lower limit does not matter for this application because we're going to use the raw data through Ethernet to take care of that. So we don't have to worry about that. And now at this point, all that we have to do is to present the web and then teach that while the web is presented. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So once we present the web and the teaching is accepted, now we can go back to the home screen. And now the controller is set up for width mode with 2 sensors. And then now it's showing you the absolute width of the product as we move the web. When the width changes, you can see that the width of the product also changes. So the second step is that now the data is being collected in the SCU5. The data is sent through the Ethernet. It's not being logged. So in order for us to log that data, we need to be able to set up the network parameters so that we can take care of these. So the second step is to make sure that the network parameters are set up right. The easiest way for us to find out what is the IP address of our device and also set the network parameters is through the operator interface directly. So we can do that by going into the tools icon, the power user icon, and then go into the communication. We want to make sure that the Ethernet is on as shown here. And depending upon your network settings, you may or may not want to have the DHCP on. And then FTP on, that really doesn't matter for this application. If a network device is present, then the controller will actually show the type of industrial network that is here. And this is called Ethernet IP. And in our case, Ethernet IP is the type of industrial network that we are using. Depending upon the firmware version, you might have something here that says what type of module that we have. We have 2 types of modules, HMS as well as Hillshare. Depending upon what module you have, that will show up. If you have an older version of the firmware, let's say version 3.6 D or maybe even 3.6A or something like that, then the type of module will not show up there. The IP address of the module is shown here. The subnet mask is shown here. The gateway is shown here. And then the MAC address is shown here. If you want to change the IP address of this module, then you can just press this IP button and then type in the IP address that you want to change. So I'm going to say 192.168.0.0.1 and 100. This is just for illustration purposes. I actually put it as 2.100. So if you want to set this, you can press the set button to set it. Because I set the IP address wrong, so I'm going to go back in and put the right IP address. So again, press on that 192.168.0.0.1 and 100. Once we do that, we need to press the set IP address to have the IP address set based on what you have entered. And then if the IP address is different than what you had before, you can hit the refresh button just to be sure that the controller has taken the IP address properly. In some of the cases, we might have to restart the whole controller, especially with older firmwares. We might have to, anytime we make a network change, we might have to restart the power cycle, the whole controller. With the newer firmware and the chip that we have, we don't have to do that. So, but likewise, you can do the same thing for the subnet mask and gateway. And then if you have a controller or a network where you are setting the DHCP, then you would turn on the DHCP. And anytime you turn on or off the DHCP, you don't need to power cycle the controller. But essentially, that's the easiest way for us to set the IP address, the network information, and also to view what controller or what module that we have on this particular controller. There's also ways in which we can set these network information through a computer. We're not going to talk about it today, but this is the easiest way in which we can set this up. Now, the second step in this process is once we have this set up, now we're going to go to the PLC and make sure that the PLC has the right parameters for communicating between the SCU5 and this controller. The easiest way to make sure what the PLC network information is and what the IP address for the PLC is um, uh, is done by actually pressing on the top left and the the bottom left and the top right corner of the PLC several times. Okay, once you have that, then you can go in and click on the offline. So once you get into this offline mode, you can also ensure that the IP address for the PLC is set properly and make sure that it matches with the network information on the SCU5 controller. You have the ability to connect the SCU5 controller to a managed or unmanaged network. Likewise, you can do the same thing with the PLC, or you can directly connect the PLC to the SCU5 controller without going through a switch. If you do that, what we need to make sure is that the network information on the PLC matches the network information on the SCU5 controller, and then PLC has a distinct IP address compared to the SCU5 controller, and then the PLC also knows the explicit IP address of the SCU5 controller. So in order to check all of these things, what we can do is we can go into the offline mode as shown here. Once you're in this offline mode, we can go into the main unit and then click on the Ethernet and then click on the LAN. And now this shows the information for this PLC. So this is the IP address, subnet, gateway for this PLC. We just need to make sure that this information is similar to the information on the SCU5 controller. So let's go ahead and look at that. SCU5 controller, communication, and the IP address for the SCU5 controller is not the same as the PLC, which is what we want. The subnet mask matches, the gateway matches, and then if you compare that with the PLC has an IP address of 10, the SCU5 has an IP address of 100. So once that is done, we can go back into the peripherals and then look at the device/PLC settings, Ethernet IP, and then go into that device. And this is actually the device that we are trying to connect, in our case SCU5, so that IP address of that SCU5 matches the IP address on the PLC. Now we have set up the PLC and the SCU5 with the right network information so that they can talk to each other. Okay, once we have all the IP address set up, now we need to go into the steps that are necessary for data logging and also to start the communication. First and foremost, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the communication between the PLC and the SCU5 controller is going properly. And for that, we're going to go into that communication screen. And then right now it says the Ethernet IP is actually off. So let's go ahead and turn it on. Now the Ethernet IP is on. If you don't see any error messages, then it means that the SCU5 controller and the PLC is communicating properly. Just to show you what happens if it doesn't communicate, I'm going to remove the Ethernet connection from the SCU5, and you can see that there will be an error message that will show up saying that the TCP/IP connection is lost, or things like that. So if you see that error message, that means that the Um, Either the device is not set up properly to communicate with the SCU5 controller, and this would be the error message that you would see. Um, and it shows that it's not, the PLC is basically is not able to um, connect to the SCU5 controller. So as soon as we connect the cable back, this error should disappear within a few uh, within a minute or so, um, and then yeah, likewise now it's communicating with the PLC, with the SCU5. So once that is set up, so when you have a web in front, now this should provide you the width of the web on the PLC, um, but it's also showing that width on the SCU5 controller. Um, so in order to change the units, what we're going to do is actually go into the setup screen and then go into the other setup as well, and then the units are here. You can set that to inches. Um, Even though SU5 may be set to inches, the PLC can be set to another unit, irrespective of what the unit of the SU5 is. Um, and in this screen, you can also change the language. Currently, we support English and Spanish. So if you press Spanish, it's going to go to all the uh, icons would change to Spanish. And then if you want to change it back to English, then you can do that. So this is where you would set the units, and you can go back to the home screen. And now if we present the web, now the units would be in inches, just like what the SCU5 is. Now we know that the SCU5 is communicating with the PLC, and then you are able to see the data. Now we can add more things to it. So as you can see on the home screen, there are the three lights that are available. These are the three digital outputs. So in order for us to run up a stack light, what we do is we take the data from the SU5 and then use the recipe or the settings that are there on the PLC, so that you can set up upper limit and lower limits for the alarms and warnings. That way you can connect it to a stack light, and the stack light would go on based on that. So in order to do that, we're going to go into this screen and then go into the width setup, and we can set the upper limit and lower limit for the alarms, um, and all the units are going to be in the respective units for the alarm, and as well as the width. So the first step that we want to do when we are in this width setup screen to trigger the stack light is to set up the nominal width, the alarm, warning, and all those information. So in our case, we have set the nominal width to 5 inches, but if you want to change it to some other value, you can just press that button and enter that value there. Upper limit and lower limits for the alarm and the warning doesn't have to be symmetrical, so it can be asymmetric. The alarm value should always be greater than the warning value. That's the precondition. Uh, when the width value exceeds the alarm value, or goes above the upper limit of the alarm value, or goes below the lower limit of the alarm value, then the red light is going to be indicated. And then likewise, if it's in the range for the warning, it'll be in the amber. And then if it is within the nominal width, that's going to show the essentially the green. So once we have it set up, we can go to the home screen. We can see that right now the alarm is enabled, and then when the width is within the nominal range, you have it as green. And then if the width changes to some value that is outside those limits, amber. And then if it's really off, then it goes to red. And that's the way in which this works. Now you can also plot this data, so you can see that in a real-time graph, it's going to show you the limits for the width as well as the limits for the alarm, showing that in the red. So you can have a visual indication of how it's been doing historically with a graph like that. Now that we have set up these alarms and warnings and stuff like that, um, these are not used for data logging purposes, but these are just for triggering the stack length. In order to log the data, you can start logging by connecting a USB. Um, and if you want to have some lot information, you can go in and press that and enter your lot number, so that when we log the data, that lot number is also allocated there. So in order to log the data, we need to be able to connect a USB thumb drive. There's a USB port underneath the PLC that we can use to connect that thumb drive. So I have an extension cable here, so I'm going to connect the thumb drive through an extension cable. But as soon as we connect that thumb drive to the PLC, there should be a blue icon that appears in the bottom right. As you can see in the bottom right hand corner, that icon appears. And if you want to take a look at it, go inside. Well, right now it has disappeared, but that lets you know that the USB has been recognized and connected to the device. Once you are ready with that, what we can do is we can go into the PLC and start data logging. So we have the web here, and we have presented all the settings for the upper limit and lower limit and all those kind of things. So since they're all set up right now, we can go ahead and start collecting the data. And when the web is there, you can see that it's measuring that. We're going to go in and then communication data log. Now it's saying no data logging is being done. So in order for us to do the data logging, we're going to say start. And now this is started data logging. The remote data log is off right now. But if you want to have another interface or a signal that would tell us when to log the data, when to start and when to stop, then you're going to enable that. If you want the operator to start and stop the data logging, then you can just go here and do it. Since the logging is being done, it says logging data on the top left hand corner. And then once you're done data logging, you can just press the stop button right there. And then if you want to remove the USB, you can safely remove the USB by pressing the top and the bottom, just like what we did before. And then now it shows up the USB icon at the bottom there. So we're going to click on that icon and then say remove USB storage device and press yes on it. And then the storage device has been removed successfully because that icon on here has disappeared. Now you are able to disconnect the USB thumb drive, and once you connect it to the computer, then you have the ability to take a look at the data. So let's do that next. Okay, we're going to switch over to the computer screen. Now the USB is connected, and you can see that the thumb drive has been recognized, and it shows the different files that are there. So today is the 25th, so we have that file right there showing the 25th. And if you double click on that file, you can see that it has collected the data, the lot number has been assigned, and then you also have the, sorry about that, you also have the width data that is being presented here. As you scroll down, oops. Okay, as you scroll down, you can see the actual width measurement that was done. So right now the time scale is about In this particular program, it's about once per second. So the width at that time was 4.735 inches. And the units is basically the same units that we have on the controller. So if you had a units, the unit shows up, and if you have inches, it shows up. The lot number shows up, and then the time when it was recorded, and then the date when it was recorded. So that's as simple as that, to be able to log the data through the RTI PLC um, and from our SCU5 controller. One other feature that we have is that we also have the ability to provide some recipes. The recipes are used when you are running different web width products and you don't want to change the nominal width, the alarm, and the warning information every time you change the width. You can create your own recipes, and that's done here. And anytime you want to load a recipe, you click on that product number, and then you're going to press load recipe, and whatever that value is going to be loaded. It's going to be displayed. It will not be presented or pushed to the home screen until you press the accept. So now once you press the accept, that value is being loaded. Anytime you want to save a new recipe, you're going to go in there, press on load, and then press the values for those. So if I want to change that nominal width to 5 inches, I'm going to enter that nominal width, and then the all the other settings are set. Now I am happy with this recipe, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that. Now product 1, every time we go to product 1, it's going to have the 5 inches. So we go back to product 2, load that recipe, that shows up there, and product 1, come back here and load that recipe. Now it's 5 inches. This is just displaying it. So if you want to push this to the home screen, you still need to press accept, and we're going to do that. Now if you go back to the home screen, that's going to show you that the new alarm and warning signals, and you can see that here. And if I present the web, you can see that it's good now, and it's an alarm now kind of thing. So that's essentially it.